Hey everyone, and welcome to our webinar on AI and personalization. My name is Brittany Fisher, and I'm on the product marketing team here at Cvent. And I've been at Cvent for about 6 years now, and I took over leading AI about 2 years ago, around the time ChatGPT was blowing up. And it has been a passion of mine ever since. And I'm excited to be here to talk to you about how it's evolving with personalization. But just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. You can join the chat on the right-hand side of your screen, and I highly recommend that. We're going to be asking questions along the way, and you can ask us questions in the Q&A on the sidebar as well. And then you can download this slide deck and any other resources under the resource tab. So now I will pass it over to our other wonderful speaker, Christine, to tell us a little bit about herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Christine and I manage the marketing technology here at Cvent. I've also been with Cvent around 6 years and I'm so excited to chat with you guys today all about AI and personalization.
Thanks, Christine. And now we'll go into our agenda. So today we're going to start with a quick overview of personalization and why it's important today in 2025. And then we'll dive into data. You can't have personalization or AI without good data. And we'll talk about what that means and how you get there. Then we'll chat about different ways you can use AI to personalize throughout the entire attendee journey. And finally, we'll end with answering some of your questions. So, personalization. Think about the last time you saw an eerily accurate ad or got the perfect Netflix recommendation. That's personalization in action. And why does this work? Other than getting a kick out of feeling like you're having a demure Brett summer Tuesday afternoon, it really makes you feel seen and understood. Years ago, I had a hospitality teacher who said something along the lines of, experiences are only memorable if they're different from your expectations, good or bad. If things go as expected, then oftentimes you'll just keep going on with your day and never think about it again. But if something exceeds your expectations or even goes terribly worse than your expectations, it'll stick with you and you'll remember it. And that's what we're trying to do here with events and with personalization. It allows us to create memorable experiences for our attendees that exceed their expectations, making them feel seen and understood and leaving them raving about your events and wanting to come back for more. So why are we talking about this now, though? Personalization has been around for years. You've seen that with Netflix for years, so why now? I read the stat, according to Adobe, 71% of consumers expect brand expectations to be tailored to their needs. The key word here is expect. It is no longer a nice to have. It's an expectation from our attendees. Personalizations is one of the biggest trends of 2025. Pretty common for big organizations like a Netflix or an Amazon to be able to successfully personalize, but it can be a lot harder for smaller teams to create this level of personalization. And that's partially been because it's been too hard and too time consuming to do it, like without spending unthinkable hours customizing individual emails or on-site experiences for your attendees. That's why AI comes in handy. It allows us to personalize at scale in a way that's never been possible before. And this is all great, but personalization is much easier said than done. And we've all seen examples of bad personalization. I mean, who else remembers that tweet going around years ago about the girl's elderly dad who received a Christmas basket from their local mortuary? Or even more simple, received an email that just said, hey, first name, instead of your actual first name. That happened to me last week with an organization I won't mention. But bad personalization can hurt you more than if you didn't do it at all. So we need to be careful with our personalization. So that's a lot about why personalization is important. But Christine, can you tell us a little bit more about where to start with marketing and personalization?
Yeah, thanks, Brittany. That was great context for personalization and why it's important. And we've all heard that term, but what does it really mean? According to Gartner, it's about delivering the right messages to the right audience and in the right context to maximize marketing and advertising performance. In essence, it involves tailoring content to specific audiences while thinking about tone, timing, and channel, using behavioral inferences and segmentation, continuing testing and optimizing all of your experiences. Awesome. So let's now talk about the different approaches to marketing personalization. Marketing personalization is interesting. A lot of people say that when they hear the word personalization, they immediately think of the most granular approach, but there are actually multiple levels to work with. Let's start with the most targeted method, one-to-one personalization. This is the show me, you know me approach. It's incredibly powerful because it tailors content to a specific individual. Imagine reading an email that feels like it was written just for you. That's the magic of one-to-one personalization. While it's the most impactful, it's also one of the most challenging to execute at scale. Next, you have the one-to-many approach. This is the great middle ground where you segment your audience into broader groups. For example, you might create different content for C-suite executives versus managers and analysts. Or you could segment by industry, tailoring your messages to associations differently than you might for a world of financial organizations. It's still more relevant than generic content, but easier to manage than individual personalization. And lastly, you have the generic approach. This is the broadest level where you create general content that applies to a wide audience. While it's not personalization, it still has its place in your marketing mix, especially when addressing universal topics. Personalization is not an all or nothing game. You can start broader with segmentation and gradually redefine your approach. The goal is to make your content as relevant as possible to your audience. Okay, now let's quickly touch on how AI can supercharge your personalization efforts. It can help us produce more tailored content faster without overwhelming our content teams. It can also help marketers learn new skills or help with skills that someone's maybe not their strong suit, and adapt to constant new challenges that marketers have on a day-to-day basis. AI is also great at processing large data sets, helping us collect and organize and analyze customer data more effectively. By leveraging AI in all these ways, you can enhance your personalization across all levels, from generic to one-to-one approaches, delivering more relevant and engaging experiences to your audience at scale. Now that we understand what marketing personalization is and why you should use it for events, let's explore how you can get started with implementing it. This is crucial because many marketers understand the importance of personalization, but struggle with the practical implementation. Let's break down these three areas. Strategic focus. This is where we lay the groundwork for our personalization efforts. We need to ask ourselves some important questions. Next, we have data. Once we have our strategy in place, we need to leverage our data effectively. This involves collecting, analyzing, and interpreting that data to better understand our audience and inform our personalization efforts. And personalize. This is where we put our insights into action, implementing personalized experiences based on our strategic focus and data-driven insights. By focusing on these three areas, strategic focus, data, and personalization, and leveraging AI, you can create a robust framework for implementing effective marketing personalization. Now let's dive into strategic focus. Here are some example questions that you can think about when you're defining your strategic focus. What is the business objective of this personalization? How and why does this help my attendees? We might want to save them time, or are we providing more relevant content to them? And what's the goal? Are we aiming for higher attendance rates? Are we looking to improve email click-through rates? By answering these questions, you can set a clear direction for your personalization strategy and ensure your efforts align with both business objectives and your attendee needs. Now, we all know why we are personalizing, but let's talk about why good data is critical for AI-driven personalization in your events. You need to start with clean, relevant, and recent data. That's the foundation of the effective personalization. If you personalize based on data from, say, 5 years ago, it probably won't be as effective. Next, we want to identify those key data sources that could provide you with different types of data. At Cvent, we would probably look at our marketing automation platform, Salesforce, our database, and of course, our event data in Cvent. When looking at this type of data, we're looking for quality, not quantity. And lastly, make sure you're looking at your attendee behavior details to better understand what resonates with them so that you can personalize directly to them. Now, how can AI prepare you for this data? We talked a little bit about it in some of the last slides, but just some ideas is not the only way. You can help clean your data, normalize your data, remove duplicates. And this is maybe more than just using the remove duplicates tool in Excel, but a little bit more advanced than that. You can also help list your specific personas and job titles and categorize them. This sets you up with a more accurate segmentation and personalization. In the world of AI-driven event personalization, good data isn't just important, it's essential. It allows you to transform a standard event into a unique experience for each attendee, driving better engagement and outcomes for everyone involved. Okay, now let's look at how you collect and analyze for that effective personalization. We'll start with account data. This includes industry information, account type, company size. You can gather this from registration forms, or you can use that existing data that we just talked about. Next, you have contact data. This covers interests, location, job function, and level. Again, registration is a great way to collect this information. Keep in mind that this data is not event specific. It's just about the specific person. And finally, there's event attendee data. This is where you gather that deep understanding of attendees' motivations, goals, and you want to know their dietary restrictions or maybe their networking goals. It's crucial to ask open-ended questions about their main goals for attending. This allows you to tailor event experiences more precisely. You want to understand what really drives your attendee. Do you want more networking opportunities? If so, maybe leave gaps in your agenda. Are they interested in specific trends? Maybe add a session or two about those trends. Remember that this data isn't just for the current events, but it's also being able to use this for content personalization or promos for future events as well. One of the critical aspects of effective personalization is integrating across your systems. As you can see on this slide, you have Cvent on the left handling your event contact and engagement data. This includes crucial information like attendee demographics, session enrollment, and all of the other things listed here. On the right, you can see various MarTech platforms, from marketing automation tools like Marketo and HubSpot to CRM systems like Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics. The purple area in the middle represents your integrations. This is where the magic happens. Through those types of integrations, you can ensure smooth data flow between Cvent and your external systems. This allows for that smooth transfer of attendee information across platforms, more targeted event experiences across platforms, and reducing that human error in data handling. Remember that gathering data is just the first step. The real power comes when your systems talk to each other, keeping information up to date and relevant across the platforms. These integrations are key to making a unified view of your attendees and delivering truly personalized experience. Okay, we've talked a lot about prepping your data for personalization, which is the necessary first step in this process. But next, I want to bring Brittany back up to start going through how we can use AI to personalize at each step of the journey. Before we get into that, Brittany and I want to hear from you. How are you currently using AI to market to attendees or try to get them to register before an event? You could use the chat to answer, and we will be looking at your responses. Brittany, let's see what ideas you have.
Yeah, thanks, Christine. That was great. The data side of things is so key and so important. So thank you for walking us through that. And please, let us know how you're currently using AI for marketing. I would love to tell you my ideas, but we have a lot of people here who use AI, and this is a great forum for idea sharing and learning from each other outside of just me. But I'll dive into some of the ways that I'm familiar with and that we are using here at Cvent. Using AI to create marketing materials is probably the most common use case for AI right now, and what you guys are probably familiar with. Using large language models or LLMs to write content, something like ChatGPT, Claude, Jasper, and you can use it to create customized content for things like emails, digital ads, blogs, but you can take this to a deeper level with your data using the data strategies that we mentioned earlier. And once you have your data in a good place, you can use AI to help with content, or even use data tags to help personalize that content. And I'm reading the chat right now. It looks like a lot of you guys are using it in similar ways with content, writing descriptions, titles, emails. I love the push notification. But yeah, a lot of emails, social media content. We do the same thing here. And we also have our Cvent writing assistant, which you can see on this slide, as a part of our tool that can help with drafting all kinds of this different content. And things like speaker bios, even exhibitor descriptions or RFPs. And they're directly in the Cvent tool. So if anyone is familiar with our writing assistant, we're actually working on updating it throughout the tool. So it'll now have chatbot functionality, where you can ask questions to ensure that it's tailoring the suggestions correctly. And my favorite piece of it is that it's actually contextual. So you build your event in Cvent, you wrote your event description, you added your speakers, the writing assistant will actually know that information. So instead of using a generic tool like ChatGPT, where you would have to feed it all of that information, it can take that and use it to tailor whatever content you're creating, like emails and things like that. So that's a way of using AI in your existing tools. Another way you can use like a ChatGPT or a large language model that I think is really interesting is using it to create business cases. So this is something that we've been doing over the last couple of years with our large conference, Cvent Connect, which is in June this year. But we want our attendees to be able to go back to their organizations, to their bosses, and argue why they should go to this conference, why it's important, what they'll get out of it. So you can use your ChatGPTs or your Claudes to be like, help me create a business case for this vertical or this persona, kind of that one-to-many use case that Christine mentioned earlier. And then another one of my favorite use cases for marketing is a tool called Synthesia AI. And if any of you guys have ever been to one of my webinars on AI, you've probably heard me talk about it before. This tool allows you to create personalized video. So instead of just personalized text content, you can use AI for personalized videos. So you can get like your CEO to just record a couple of words, and then it can create all kinds of personalized videos like, hi, Bob, please come to this webinar, or thanks for coming, Jenny. And then finally, another use case for AI is to help you translate or localize your marketing materials. So this is kind of what Christine was talking about when she mentioned that like can help you with skills that you might not have. I know that we have a global audience here. I can't personally create materials in Spanish or in German, but AI can really help you do that to help reach broader audiences. Obviously, AI is a good starting point, and you should definitely have a human double check that, but it's a different way of using it to market. And you can use a large language model, but another tool is something like Interprenet that is built to help with language and translating. So that's on the marketing side. And I really want to walk you all through the entire attendee journey. So an attendee gets your marketing and you can use AI to personalize through that. But what's the next step? Because it doesn't just stop with marketing. They have to get to your website and make sure that they want to go. They want to learn about your event. What's happening? What will they get out of it? Who else will be there? But that is different for each one of your attendees. Your one persona might want a different experience than a different persona. So you can actually personalize website pages as well using AI. You can do an LLM by uploading persona information and having it tailor content, or you can use a tailored tool like Hive GPT to create those personalized web pages. And then The next step in the attendee journey is registration. And I'm not going to talk specifically about AI here, but you're at a Cvent webinar, registration is our bread and butter, and customizing the registration form is a really, really key piece of that personalized journey. So you can customize the registration form by tailoring it to your audience and having them go through different paths. So they only get questions relevant to them. And this can help increase conversions for your attendees so that they aren't getting a bunch of questions that they don't need and then end up dropping off. So the customized registration paths is a key part of this registration journey. So I'll pass it back to Christine as we're going to move into the on-site piece of this attendee journey.
Thanks, Brittany. Those are some really great ideas. I also saw some good ideas in the chat, like you mentioned. Okay, I'm going to ask you guys again to answer in the chat because it's not just us who are the experts here. AI is quickly evolving, and I want to understand what you guys do too. How are you using AI to create personalized experiences for your attendees on site during the event? Brittany, what do you have for us for on-site personalization?
I have a couple of ideas. So thank you, Christine. And please keep answering in that chat. Like I said, marketing is probably the most common ways, but it doesn't just end with marketing. So I would almost argue that customizing and personalizing the on-site experience might even be more important than personalizing the marketing experience, because when you personalize marketing, you're setting those expectations before the event. But the on-site experience is exceeding those expectations and kind of what we were talking about earlier, making it memorable. So probably the most common way to personalize on-site is through recommendation algorithms, very similar to those examples we talked about earlier with Spotify and Netflix. But these can be especially helpful at large conferences with lots of options, sessions, and things to do. It's imperative that your attendees actually find and actually attend what they're looking for to ensure they get value out of your conference. And if you're a large enterprise organization, it can be possible to build these algorithms yourself using the right data and mapping out trends and seeing similarities and behaviors. But at Cvent, we also have an AI recommendation algorithm built into our attendee hub. So we have session recommendations and attendee networking recommendations that you can see here on the tool and on the slide. Sorry. We're also currently, and this is just to give you guys more ideas, we're currently researching ways to expand these algorithms to create this whole global contact profile for your attendees, where they can explicitly choose things that they're interested in to help create that more customized experience, but we will also track implicit data off of their behaviors. So for example, if they attend 3 sessions on sustainability, we'll go back and note in the back end that there's a good chance that they're interested in sustainability. And we can use that to recommend sessions on sustainability, even at a future event that they attend. So it doesn't just stop at that one event, but through their entire attendee journey. So I talked some about recommendation algorithms, but the next common way to personalize on-site is through chatbot functionality. You can feed chatbot information about your event and then embed the chatbot into your website to answer attendee questions. So when this is set up with the right information and the right guidelines, it can answer these questions relatively personally. For example, it could potentially identify that your attendee is an exhibitor and can answer questions around booth locations or booth requirements. Also, selfishly, these chatbots can also save you a lot of time because you're not going to be answering the same questions over and over and over again that already exist on your event website. They can help answer that. So be on the lookout for some chatbot functionality coming soon from Cvent. But in the meantime, Some tools that I would suggest using is we've used Drift before for our conferences, 42 Chat, Rozzy AI. Those are some that I've seen in the market, but there's a ton of chatbot AI functionality out there, and you just have to see what fits into your MarTech stack. So the last ones I will talk about are a little bit more unconventional, and they are less about the attendee journey, but your attendees have a lot of information to take in. They go to sessions, they're networking with people, they're talking to sales, and I'm sure you've seen them furiously taking notes. So there are AI note-taking tools which can really help them as an attendee at your event. And these AI tools can help organize, summarize, and surface important information from those notes. My personal favorite is Notebook LM. It helps you because you can input all the notes that you took on different pieces of paper, and it'll organize it all. And then you can ask any questions that you might be looking for, like summarize this, or what were the big things that I should know to take back to my boss. At Cvent, we're actually working on putting some note-taking capabilities within our event app. So be on the lookout for that. I'm going to talk a lot about little roadmap pieces here, just for those of you who are already customers. But the last thing I want to mention is, and this veers away a little bit from the attendee side, but using tools for your exhibitors, note-taking tools. So there's a tool called Backtrack, which I think is really interesting, that allows your exhibitors to listen to conversations with attendees. And then if they have a really good conversation, they can scan a badge or scan a business card, and it will automatically fill in contact details and generate notes that can send to your CRM. So those are a couple of different ideas that you can personalize on site. Please keep using the chat if that sparked any ideas, or if you have anything better that you're doing. But I'll pass it back over to Christine to talk as we talk about the post-event journey.
Again, more great ideas, Brittany. I know those note-taking ones. I've seen people doing that, recording it, and then, submitting it to AI after. It was fascinating when I first saw that. Okay, let's keep going in the chat. In what ways do you currently use AI after an event ends? How are you repurposing your event content? Are you using AI for video editing? Those types of examples. Let's see them in the chat. Back to you, Brittany.
Thank you. And while you guys are throwing things in the chat, I'll talk about some ways that we are seeing it done here at Cvent. So obviously events generate huge amounts of content, and you don't want that content to go to waste. So some of that best ways is to personalize your post-event content. One of the best ways that I've seen is maybe your attendee signed up for sessions that they couldn't actually attend. They can use a tool like Snapsites or other AI summary tools to help summarize post-event takeaways. So they can listen through all of the sessions in wherever the post-event sessions are held, and it can summarize that both for your attendee and for you as a planner. The other thing you can do is you can take all of that video content, your session content, and use Cvent's video tools or other video editing tools to make your post-event content more accessible for your attendees. So the Cvent AI video tools will automatically generate descriptions based on the sessions, and then will automatically break your videos into chapters based on topics. So for example, today we talked about pre-event, post-event, and data. It'll automatically chapterize that. So that creates the personalized experiences for when your attendees are watching back, because they can jump right to what they want to watch instead of spending hours trying to sift through content. But you could even take it a step further and take these chapters, create bite-sized clips and include them in post-event materials. So say there was a really good 5-minute section on 2025 trends that you think one of your verticals would find fascinating. Put that 5-minute clip in an email or put it as a part of a social media campaign directed at them to keep engagement levels high after your event and thinking about your next event. And the last one I want to talk about is something, again, on the Cvent roadmap, but it is my favorite thing. This is something that we will put in our Cvent Attendee Hub event app, and it will create personalized event summaries for all of your attendees. So think about this as like a Spotify Wrapped for your attendees on everything that they did at your event and everything that they got out of their event. So it proves to them why they should attend your event, like the value they got out of it, but then they can take it to their org and prove why it was worth that they attended. So it just keeps that registration and the engagement going for event after event. And so that's the post-event side of things. I would be remiss if I didn't touch on a few ways that you can use AI to help with data itself. Because we talked about a lot about the attendee journey and personalizing the attendee experience, but AI can help gather the data that you need so you can then use it to personalize further in future events. And one of the coolest ways that I've seen this done is through a tool called Zenus AI. And there's a couple other tools like this out there, but you can set up a camera at your event, like in your expo hall or within your sessions, and it'll analyze real-time emotions and reactions of your attendees attending your event in person. So it can be really hard to get people to fill out feedback surveys, as I'm sure you guys all know, and for you to get accurate results on how something went. I mean, we all know that the loudest voice heard is probably the one with the most negative experience, but that shouldn't color the overall attendee experience. So a tool like Zenus is an additional feedback mechanism to gather data of what works and what doesn't work for your event. And it gives you real-time feedback so you can make live decisions. And I should mention that it is like, there's an anonymous component to it. So it gives you feedback without the PII security issue as well. And then the other cool way is using the feedback survey. We also have them, even if we can't struggle to get to responses. And we're working on a Cvent summarization tool for feedback surveys, but there are a couple other tools out there too. But what it would do is it would take all of your event feedback data and summarize and highlight the important things. Instead of spending hours going through hundreds of feedback responses, you can get averages on response ratings. You can find out who the best speakers were, but not just that quantitative data, but summarizing and pulling out that qualitative data. So that's really all of the tools that I wanted to talk about today. We threw a lot at you in these last 40 minutes. So I just wanted to summarize that personalization is an ongoing cycle of fine-tuning and refining. You need to understand your data first. You need to have that clean data and then use it to personalize, using it to create those expectations that blow your attendees' minds. And then they give you feedback, and then take that feedback, clean up the data, and use it for your next event. And when I say it like that, it almost seems simple, right? So that's all we had for you. But I have to do one more plug. If you'd like to earn a $100 gift card, please sign up to complete a demo with us. Just click that CTA on the bottom of your screen. And to any recipient outside of the US, the gift card can be converted from $100 US to any other available currency of your choosing. And with that, we can go to the questions. So bear with me. It's a live Q&A, and I'm just going to be reading these for the first time as I'm doing it. But creating a personalized agenda has been a cumbersome process for us. Is there any way to make this quicker and easier? I guess I would start, well, Christine, I'll turn it over to you first, I think, and then I can answer my 2 cents.
I think I'm more on the MarTech side, so I don't create personalized agendas, but I think my biggest thing here would just be better understanding, like, again, what the goal is, what kind of personalization you want, and then being able to feed that into some of those more like ChatGPT, generative AI content, and see kind of what it spits out. Also, ideas, just asking for ideas might spark something. What do you think, Brittany?
Yeah, I think that's great. And then from the AI tool perspective, I think that the recommendation algorithms can help attendees build their own personalized agenda because they know what to use. But when you're creating the sessions and the paths, I'd really try to lead in right now. We're looking at it on the Cvent side. We're really aware of that because that is actually probably the biggest use case that we hear feedback on. But using Excel to your advantage and the AI Excel tools to help create those paths and create the journeys for your attendees. But that's a good question. That's good feedback. And I think it's something that we're hearing a lot of and we're going to keep working on. The one thing I'll plug before I go to the next question is I was keeping an eye on the chat as I was speaking, and I think there were a lot of questions in the chat. Just make sure that you submit them in the Q&A too, because that's where we'll be reading these from, and there should be a little button that says submit to Q&A. Okay, next question. Love the personalized event summaries. Thank you. Me too. I'm so excited about it. When is that available? I'm hesitant to say any timelines because developments can shift and timelines may change, but we are hoping for the first half of this year. So keep an eye out on, in the Cvent community, we have roadmap. We have like a roadmap section, and you can get updates on where in the development process it is. All right, next question. What skills and knowledge do event planners need to have to effectively implement AI in their events? Christine, you want to start with this one and then I'll take it?
I think that's such a good question. I think that with any implementation of AI, we just need to think about how to use it, right? It might not be second nature to us to think about using AI. What I've actually heard some people say on the internet is that you need to look at AI as a collaborator. You need to think of it like an intern, right? How could you phrase things? How could you give it the task to help you? I think that when I heard it phrased like that, it was really helpful for me to understand how I could prompt it better, how I could better understand how to get what I need. And if the first prompt doesn't work, change it and see what you could do better. So I really think it's just thinking outside the box and start thinking about where could this help me? And if that tool or the generative AI isn't helping, that's when I think, to Brittany's point, you go and find that tool that's specific to help do that thing. I don't know, that wasn't really skills and knowledge, but I think, what do you think, Brittany?
No, I think that's great. I like the intern perspective because what I heard someone answer once, which I thought was a little bit of a cheeky answer, was in theory, you shouldn't need any skills or knowledge because the AI should be the tool that helps you. Like it should be doing it for you. There shouldn't be that learning curve. Realistically, I don't think we're there yet, but I think the sentiment is similar in that there's not any inherent skills that you need because these tools actually help you build skills. With like a generative AI tool, I found it helpful to ask it, like, what's the best way to use it? Give me instructions. But truly, it's a lot of trial and error right now. Like AI is developing really, really quickly and changing really, really quickly. So even if there was some hard skill that you needed today, you might not need it in 2 months from now, 6 months from now. So it doesn't really answer the question, but I would say that the best thing to do is just keep trialing and erroring it and find tools that are easy to use and in your existing MarTech system.
Yeah, I think one other thing,
All right.
Brittany.
Oh yeah, please, yeah.
I was just going to say that like I learned a lot by looking at how other people prompt. And so researching, watching honestly reels on Instagram, seeing even personal experiences of like how people use it in their personal life helped me spark ideas of how I could use it in my professional life as well. So just better understanding how people are using it. I'm talking a lot about like the generative AI and like the more like ChatGPT kind of thing, but I thought that was really helpful for me.
I totally agree. I love the idea sharing. It helps me too. All right, next question. Is AI already included in the event build process, or is it something the planner has to request? That is a very good question. So the AI writing assistant that I mentioned earlier is included for free. Actually, any Cvent AI feature right now is included for free with the product itself. So if you bought registration, you will see the AI writing assistant within the registration piece of it. If you use our Cvent supplier network, there is a AI search and it'll be included with that. That actually might still be in beta, so that may not be the best example, but it is already included in the tools that you have purchased. And we're going to be continuing that for the near future. Okay, next question. When is the chatbot rolling out? Again, good questions. I am hesitant to speak to timelines, especially because I'm not on the product team itself, but everything that I mentioned today that is on the roadmap is something that we are looking for the first half of this year. Keep an eye out. We make a lot of announcements at our Cvent Connect conference, so that might be the best time and place to hear more, but look in the Cvent community and it'll keep you updated with timelines. Okay, next question. Is there reporting behind the chatbot functionality so that we can see what has been asked? Also, can we set up auto responses? This is a great question, and it definitely is going to depend on the tool that you use. The setup auto responses, you definitely should be able to do. I mean, that's pretty basic in most chatbot functionalities, is that you're feeding it information. And so you should be able, so it can respond based off of that information, and you should be able to set guidelines and parameters. And that's what I would recommend with a tool that is attendee facing, to be really, really careful with guidelines, guardrails, parameters. Like, just make sure that you're setting that up. In terms of seeing the questions that have been asked, I think that's just going to depend on the tool, and I can't give a specific answer for Cvent since it's not out yet, but more to come. All right, next question. Can your copy be flagged as being written by AI? Context. I wrote a personal post on Facebook for my family, and it was flagged as being written by AI instead of just proofread, which it was. I was floored. Can you speak to ways to avoid these tags? Amy, that's so interesting. Christine, I'll let you take a stab at this one since I've been talking a lot, and then we can see.
That's a great question, Amy. Brittany, does Cvent flag that in any way in our product? I guess would be my first question.
We right now don't have attendee facing AI content. So we have the writing assistant on the back end to help you create content, and there is definitely notes that say like, oh, this is written by AI, like you're using AI, but it's not attendee facing. So we don't have anything in the tool right now. It's a good question though.
Yeah, it is. And I think to Amy's point, more and more people are, or more and more companies are bringing this flag up. So it is interesting. I don't know if email providers do that yet either. But honestly, this is a question that I might ask AI, right? It's like I might go to AI and be like, how do I not get this flagged? I don't know what it would say, but it would be an interesting response.
Yeah, I love that answer because I think it's a really, really good question. We're seeing like content written by by AI go lower in SEO rankings. So it's something that we have to be aware of. And I mean, the canned response is really just to not take anything directly from AI and put it somewhere and like really make sure you're reading over it and tweaking it. But it sounds like that's what you were doing, Amy. So that's a great question and definitely ask AI, but something that we can look into a little bit further too.
Also, Brittany, somebody put in the chat, there's a link to AI Humanizer. I haven't gone to the link yet, but it sounds like maybe there's tools out there that can make it sound more human too. Interesting.
Love that. And that's why we're not just the experts and we can learn from each other. So that was great. Thank you. Okay, next question. What can we do if our data collection process is manual over a spreadsheet? How can we take advantage of AI? Christine, I know you kind of talked about this a little bit in your presentation, but do you want to expand about it a little bit more?
Yeah, I think firstly, I think there are add-ons to like an Excel, probably even to Google Sheets that you can add to help with this data process and collection and, you know, fixing. The other things is sometimes depending on the chatbot or the generative AI tool that you're using, you can upload spreadsheets. Depending on how much data you're doing, sometimes I just copy and paste it and then ask it to form it back in a table for me. So really it kind of depends on like how much data you're talking about. I would assume a lot since we're talking about event data. So I might look at the extensions in those tools, and then maybe that's probably where I would start.
Yeah, I think that's a great question and a great answer. It kind of goes along with just so many tools have AI these days built in. So look at your existing tools and just see where it fits in. But okay, next question. It is hard to manage all of these additional tools outside of Cvent. It would be a lot more helpful for smaller organizations who just utilize Cvent and the tools often within. Thoughts on what the roadmap holds? Great question. I love to talk about Cvent AI, and like I literally just said, to look into your existing tech stack so you don't have 8 million AI tools that you're using for different things. So that's what we're focusing on. When I do these kinds of webinars, I don't want it to be a sales pitch. I will talk about Cvent's tools, but I don't want, like, there are plenty of other tools out there, especially as we're still developing. But when it comes to our roadmap as a whole, we are focusing on three major problem areas. So we're looking at venue and vendor sourcing. How can we make that experience easier? How can we make it easier for you to find venues, find vendors, to negotiate with that? Because we know that's very hard and very time consuming. So that's one problem area. Another problem area is that event building experience. So you as a planner, whoever is in building your events, how can we make that experience easier using AI? Like, could we, in theory, create chatbot functionality where you're like, hey, AI, build me my website. I want these requirements. And then it builds that framework of your website. That might be a longer term thing, but it's just an example of something that we're working on. And then the third area is what we really focused on today. It's that personalization at scale. It's that making the attendee experience better. And a lot of that will be through the personalizing AI tools that we talked about today and all those roadmap items that I hinted at. Okay, what about events that are for specialty conferences that deal with copyrighted materials or classified information? What privacy guardrails should we be focusing on to be thinking in the future? Christine, like, I'm happy to take this, but I want to see if you had any thoughts on this one.
I think my first thought on this one was just like being very careful about like event follow-ups and making sure that the ones you're following up with actually have the right to see that material. That would be my first thought, but other than that, I don't really have anything. Brittany?
No, I think that's great. So we're looking at this at Cvent right now, and just like for some of our internal tools. And I think one of the strategies, what they're trying to think of is setting guardrails around user permission. So if you know who is attending these conferences, which it sounds like you might with this kind of like specialty conference, then can you put in some sort of like almost like verification process, single sign-on process, like where the AI has to recognize you and information about you before you can gather specific information. That way you can tailor it. You can tell the AI like, hey, people with this persona, like, I mean, I keep using the persona example, but like people with this level of security can only access that information. So I would just be careful. Like I would think about who is using it and what verification processes you can put in place with user roles and user permissions. But very, very, very good question. And I know security is top of mind for many people when thinking about AI. Okay, next question. What tool would you recommend using for AI chatbots for webinars? I talked about this a little bit. We have used Drift before for our conferences, which I think, Christine, you were actually the one who told me that. So, but I've seen 42 Chat. I've seen a tool called Razi AI, which from looking into it seems very customer experience facing, which I found very interesting. And then, like I mentioned, also be on the lookout for Cvent because we are building AI chatbot functionality into our tool.
One thing I might add there, Brittany, is just like you might want to look at what tool, like if you have a chatbot on your website or if you have like a customer support chat, and if you're able to use those same tools for something like this AI chatbot with webinar. If there's a chatbot on your website, most likely it has AI features. Same with probably your like community or support chat. So that would probably be the first place I would go if you didn't want an additional tool and to be aligned with the rest of the organization.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's a really, really good point. Next question. Can you say more about the reaction tools and how it's really tracked? That's a really good question. I've tried to look into this a little bit. It's not a tool that I've used myself, but from what I understand, it just doesn't identify who you are. So it's not the like facial recognition software, but it's more of just, hey, and I don't know how they identify like this attendee was angry or this attendee was happy, but like it's more of like this person at this session or a person at this session had this reaction, or 70% of them smiled and seemed happy at this session. So I think it's just a little bit more generalized to keep it tracked rather than on an individual level where it's like Brittany or Christine seemed really upset at this session. But look into it's called Zenus AI. And I know there's a couple other ones, but look into that. They have some pretty good videos that go into it a little bit more. I'm looking at some of it. Okay, let's see. This looks like a very good question. It's easier to onboard AI tools with the tools we already have, i.e. Cvent, versus procuring, contracting additional AI tools, which go through a whole legal and AI procurement process, which takes more time. I just realized that this isn't a question. So if Sarah, if there is a question to this, let us know, but we totally understand we have to go through the same thing here at Cvent. So continue looking at your existing tools. I'm just looking to see what else we have.
I think while you're pulling that up, as Brittany said, we're bringing so much more AI and our tools continuing to develop, but also for me, when we're going through AI tool evaluations, just making sure we understand what the questions that people are going to ask, what legal is going to ask, what security is going to ask, so that way we can ask the vendor and make sure that they're vetted to be able to handle what our organization requirements are. So I know that's not really part of the question, but just saying if you were to purchase an additional tool, making sure you understand those questions is really key.
I think that's great and a great thing to think about because there is so much up in the air with this AI. And I just looked at the time. I know we're almost out. I'll do one more question, and it's a pretty easy question to answer. Again, thanks, Sarah, for the questions. For the Cvent chatbot, will that flag as powered by AI? Yes. We want to make it clear, as I would recommend for any tool that you're using that you're thinking about for AI, that transparency with AI is really, really key. That attendees want to know whether something is AI generated. And so that is something that we are really thinking about at Cvent and will continue doing as we are releasing attendee-facing AI and planner-facing AI as well. But that's pretty much it. I just want to say thank you. Thank you guys for joining us. And if you have any additional questions, we can hang on and answer a couple more. And we hope you have a good rest of your day.